Are live, and we are here with our special guest today on the Life and Law podcast, Kathlee Arthur. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. I'm so happy to be here.
And would you like to just start by just telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Oh, sure. Let's see. First of all, I'm old. I'm almost 67. And I have actually had 2 strokes.
Oh, wow.
Actually 3 now. And I do lisp a little bit. Contrary to what Francesca says, I'm not drunk. I had a stroke. I just want to make that very clear. I'm doing much better, but I do still lisp. In terms of who I am, 1982, I got my bachelor's degree in science and I became a nursing researcher. And I was instrumental in the transition from SIDS disease A being diagnosed and not murder. And then from SIDS, I was on the board of director for the SIDS Resources of Oregon, and the only thing that we provided was comfort. That was it. There was an entire organization that was just providing comfort. And so I went to a seminar and found out that binkies or pacifiers were actually protective against SIDS. In absolute horror, as my entire postpartum unit had just gotten rid of all pacifiers about almost a year prior. And it was because that was best practice. We actually won an award for getting rid of the pacifiers at my postpartum unit. So I called the boss, and she went out that night and bought a bunch of pacifiers with their own money. And then ours, I looked back, we didn't get any statistics, but I looked and we went from being medium SIDS statistics hospital to the highest in Oregon statistics of SIDS hospital when we got rid of the pacifiers. And we dropped down to last as soon as we got the pacifiers back and started really, promoting pacifier use, basically. So that was one of my early successes. And then I've gone on to write now 3 federal bills, one from conception to president's desk and signed in 24 hours. But what I'm most noted for is this, which is that I helped to write and then pass the Family First Act.
Family First. Can you hold it up one more time?
Sure.
So it says, the power of one acknowledges Kathleen Arthur for her outstanding dedication to the Family First Preservation Services Act of 2016 to 2018, signed into law February 9th, 2018. Wow.
So
what does that law say?
Oh, have you heard of the Family First Act?
Off the top of my head,
it's the most sweeping federal change in 20 years, but it did one thing very poorly. It didn't stop ASFA. Therefore, it didn't work. The 2 things: one, it didn't stop ASFA, which is the Adoption Safe Family Act, and it did not stop targeting of poor children as they left Title IV-E as an entitlement. As a matter of fact, this bill in 2018 made things worse, because starting in 2018, the social workers had 2 piles of money to work from. They had the pool that they didn't have beforehand, the money from the federal government that they could give the non-poor kids, right? So, and then they still had the pool of money, Title IV-E, which is an entitlement, means your parents have to be on food stamp in order to be entitled to foster care and have it paid for by the federal government. So it screwed it. It made it worse. It made the divide of poverty worse, because the non-poor were getting Family First, which are reunification funds. It was the first HHS bill, this bill, that did not kick fathers out of the house in order to get help. period. It was not based on income. It was totally based on need. And Family First is only assistance. It does not do any judicial anything bad. But that was supposed to also come with getting rid of ASFA and then switching the per head count entitlement, because it's every child gets a certain amount of money, but they have to be poor. Let me give you an example. If you have 10 parents in one office with, say, 5 kids each, and they're drug addicts, and out of the wild world JFK Jr. HHS, we come up with a pill to absolutely end drug addiction. Done. The parents are no longer addicted to drugs. The social workers would then have to go and discharge all of those children, 50 kids, right? And then the next day, the office would have to close, because HHS foster care units in every state of the United States depend upon a certain amount of children being in their care at all times in order to receive Title IV funds. Because it's per child per day, if the census goes down, the money immediately stops. So anyway, I'm kind of getting into the weeds of what I'm doing, but
So in other words, it's like a quota. Like they have to meet certain
it
quotas
must
and
maintain.
getting the funding.
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
And they're doing all kinds of really horrible things that I'll get into later because of that. So it's 2 things that basically I'm working at on a federal level now. Actually, 3 things. It's number 1, we must stop the entitlement. We must stop targeting poor children and disabled children for Title IV payments. All we have to do is, just like every single other office in the entire world, give them money per capita. If there is X amount of children in a state, then you get X amount of dollars. It doesn't depend upon keeping a certain amount of children in the office at all times, or you can't keep lights on. We have forced the federal government, with the power of the purse, has forced the social workers in every state of the union into this horrific behavior. Forced.
And so do you believe that maybe that is why post 2019, 2020, I've noticed that it seems like ever since COVID, everything has been so much more corrupted within these child protective and family courts. It's almost as if something changed.
They
Law.
did. And what had happened was, beforehand, they only got paid to grab up the poor kids and take them into foster care, which is almost all of the children. I'm going to say in any state in the union, 90% of the children in foster care qualify for Title IV, because if the state has a child that doesn't qualify for foster care, the child's parents aren't on food stamps, it's on the state's nickel. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if the child is on Title IV, it is on the federal government's nickel. And so now they're targeting. They admit, actually, I have a tape on Facebook with Congresswoman Bass's office, Karen Zenwin, admitting that they are targeting poor children by design.
Yeah, and somebody in the comments on the stream also said places would falsify drug tests to pull kids or keep them in the system for the funding. And
Absolutely.
I've heard of
I'm going to tell you what, they had to. Nobody likes to hear this. The social workers had to falsify and lie and do this on a regular basis and take children that didn't need to be taken. They had to do this. The fault of this is the federal government, the power of the purse, and the way they wrote the freaking funding. Period. If we don't change that, they're going to keep lying, cheating, and stealing and doing whatever they need to do on a certain groups of kids over and over and over again in order to keep their office open. It's self-preservation.
Well, what I don't understand is that, like, I did 2 years at the University of Connecticut School of Law, and then I went on a leave of absence, which I'm still currently on, due to dealing with the corruption of what's happening in my own case. And losing my own children and everything like that. So when I was in law school, I was taught that Congress only has the power to regulate commerce. So when
No,
did Congress start getting power to start regulating domestic relations? Because isn't
no,
all of
no,
this
they do
for
not. They still do not. What Congress has is the power of the purse. And Congress has the ability to make legislation. Okay. Those are, they also have a couple other ones, but those are the two greatest powers that they have. Congress is the one who wrote the Social Security Title 4E, which is foster care, and how it is to distribute it. They wrote the laws. Only they can unwrite the laws. The states are voluntarily doing this to children because it's how they get paid. But they have to only do it one way because it's how they get paid. They get paid to kidnap a certain, branch of children. And there's such a small amount of children there in that group that they get paid for. They have to lie, cheat, and steal in order to keep the population up, right? This is just bureaucracy. I call it bureaucratic cannibalism. They're eating the children to stay alive.
pretty pretty good way to put it. We have another question for you. Somebody said, do you believe we need to start with the Family First program and change that first and foremost? And if so, how do we start that process?
Okay. All right. So just for clarification, the Family First Act has already passed and it's been alive and well. Okay. But it's not a matter of we deciding to use it. The way Congress wrote it is non-poor people have to use reunification services, or at least they get paid by the federal government. And so therefore they will take, more of these, and they have too. I mean, the increase of just everybody getting their kids taken. It used to be just poor kids. Now it's like everybody's getting their kids taken because they got a pool of funds now that they can use on those people. But they also have to take the children of poor people because they are entitled. They are entitled by law to foster care. They get to go into foster care. The state gets paid if they go into foster care, but only poor ones or disabled ones. So
Yes.
you have to look at it from the kind of the right part of the telescope, I guess.
Yeah. And I think the best way to describe, like with the whole Title IV E and D, is that these are conditional funding programs where
Right.
you don't just get the funding, there's conditions and strings attached. And that's
Mhm.
what you're getting at, where if you don't meet
It's
conditions,
called an entitlement. Entitlements.
and so that, yeah, that's kind of the biggest problem. And I know that a lot of people have been active and vocal about trying to come up with solutions and different ideas of how we can fix this national crisis that's affecting so many millions of people. And I know that you were personally involved with Francesca Amato and her so-called Family Justice and Accountability Act, which ended up not even being real. And so I know that you ended up, I was, told that you separated from her, group and started your own thing and left from her. So can you just kind of tell your story of what happened with all that and why you decided to leave and not be part of
Sure.
Francesca's?
But let me go ahead and correct something. I did not ever join Francesca's group. She asked me to. She asked me to. Everybody who is in Francesca's circle has signed a non-disclosure form, right? And I told her that I'm not joining a group. What I'm doing is I have a very good long-term relationship with Senator Grassley's and quite a few others' offices. And they're getting like a bunch of people writing bills. And they're emotional, as you can imagine. Some of them throw in a few unconstitutional things here and there too. But what I do is I've got a computer program like now to where I can just like feed in the bill, cut to the chase, get the specific programs that are also matched up to Title IV SSA, what letter, what number, what the problem is, and then the solutions. And then I keep the original author in. And then what I do is I go and just put like an index on the top of the bill, but only for the Title IV issues, because I do not know most of the stuff, most of the bills people send me has to do with. So what I am doing is, as a volunteer to help Senator Grassley, I'm reviewing people's bills. And that's what we went ahead and made the Stone Soup for. It's a Stone Soup group. And what I have is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have sent me their bills now. And I'm just printing them out, feeding them into the computer, and then I'm putting that as an index on top of the pile. And then I ask permission for the original author to go through and make sure that my index is correct and is reflecting the tone and truth of their bill. And then if I get permission, I go ahead and put that in the stack in the Stone Soup. And so what I'm doing from that is like I said, I'm a researcher. I'm making like, in essence, an Excel sheet that is telling me several things, what the most vivid problems are that people are considering, and also some outliers that are fascinating that I never would have considered too. So it's been super fascinating. And so I really never was part of Francesca's group. And so, as evidenced by the fact I have never signed a disclosure form with her. And I demand her to challenge that, because I never have. I was doing her a favor. She asked me to help her, and I did. And she was fine with it. I actually just ran through the whole bill and took out all of like the unconstitutional or poorly worded, or, just there was a lot of errors in there that were just simply technical. Like, for example, she was drawing on multiple funding sources for one big issue. You can only do one bill per funding source. They don't like distribute it through all over the place, just stuff like that. And then she agreed to it. I sent her a copy. I called her. We went over it for a half hour, the first half of it, and then the actual bill. She said she'd read later. And I go, no, I'd really like to go over this with you because I want to make sure that you understand it. And she didn't. And then she claimed that it was an attachment that never came through, but it was all on one email. There were no attachments. So she didn't read my suggested bill, but she approved it and told me to start handing it out to the senators, which I did. And they loved it. Then she saw it and read it and had a fit and told me to take it all back, which I did. And so, then she asked me to not represent her bill anymore. And I never was representing her bill. Never. I never had one meeting with anybody about her bill. The only thing I ever did was speak at one of her events, but I had not read the bill yet. She had still not given me a copy. I asked and asked and asked for a copy of it. And at that speech, she gave me a 2-page synopsis, which was great. And based on that 2-page synopsis, I recommended the bill. But I was deceived, and so was other people, by Francesca, because she went on to, anyway, she's not playing straight, and that is very observable and predictable. When you get to this phase of organization, getting very close to actual solution, this sort of banter back and forth is apparently required. I mean, I'm just saying, but think of the original Twitter fight. Yeah, that was way back when the Constitution was being made. And there were two old dudes fighting about what the Constitution should contain. And so what they did was they took on anonymous names, and in the local newspaper, they argued it out. back and forth and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, name calling, duels. I mean, it's we are not even in comparison to the original constitutional fight that went on. It's called the Federalist Papers. Have you heard of those?
Yes.
The Federalist Papers are the original Twitter fight. So it's going to happen. People have big egos, you know, and some people work out loud. Some people work in silence. I have really severe post-traumatic stress that I'm just now getting over. And so, you know, I have worked in silence basically for the last 6 years, not because I was afraid, but because I was,
So
because
I
I
just
was afraid I had post-traumatic stress.
So I just shared the Family Justice and Accountability Act on my screen so that everybody
Yeah.
could see it. And I just did want to comment on what you said because at the time when all this was happening around like October 20th or so, I was speaking with some of the other moms who were part of the group, and some of them were talking about you, and they were saying that Francesca Amato was telling everybody that you you work directly for Donald Trump's cabinet, and you're a direct link to Donald Trump, and that we have somebody on our team that is working right alongside with RFK and Donald Trump, and this person's going to get an and then when October 20th happened, and I said this is all
Hold on. Let me address that what you just said. That's true.
You're saying it's true?
Mhm.
But she was saying that you were working as their like connection directly to the White House.
Policy
Yeah.
advisor to Title 4E. I was, and I was helping them write a EO, which was signed by Donald Trump, and I participated. I got 2 out of the 22 points in there, so she was correct.
But did you say that you were working to push the Family Justice and Accountability Act to?
No, never.
She told her group.
Yeah.
So basically what she did was she twists the truth, because you do
Yeah.
have those connections and qualifications, but she was saying that you are now her inside source to Trump.
No.
Or direct connection to Trump. And don't worry, we have her on our team. Kathleen's on our team, so don't worry, we're good. And then that's why after on October 20th, I asked one of the women, hey, you know, how did it go? What happened in DC? And she said, oh, well, we're going to have an emergency vote on the bill tomorrow. Kathleen Arthur is getting us an emergency vote, according to Francesca. And I said, an emergency
That's not true.
vote? Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. And what
God.
you guys must have some pull with some powerful people if you can get something as an emergency vote, especially during a government shutdown. And that's interesting.
I have passed a bill. I have, from conception to president's desk in 24 hours. This particular bill would not qualify for it. It would have to be a super simple problem in terms of super simple solution with easy, clear funding in order to do that again. This will never pass easily or quickly or any version of it. But I never said any of that. And I have frankly, you know, disassociated myself with Francesca, and so has Senator Grassley's office and Senator Chuck Schumer's office and a couple others that I know of. They're just not going to be entertaining her bill anymore because she just lies all the time.
Yeah. And like in your experience with working with, you know, bills and things like in legislation, how many times have you ever seen a bill that was copyrighted?
Never. But that's okay. You know what? That's cool. I don't care if she copyrights the bill. By the time it gets into the bill part, it's no longer copyrighted. They wouldn't allow a copyrighted bill to go through. But I think that she feels that she's been very unjustly targeted and everybody's out to get her. And so she was like protecting her bill by doing that. And I thought, wow, that's reasonable. Of course, now I think that, well, there's a reason for so many people out there that doesn't like her because she lies all the time about stuff. And then she attacks people too, which is super unprofessional. She
Yeah.
she actually I did tell her that I don't like to attend big meetings because I have post-traumatic stress syndrome and I smoke pot for it. And then she started like just completely um defaming me on she 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 shared my medical information basically and called me a stoner. And I use that for my post-traumatic stress. And she's supposed to be an advocate for disabled people. And then I do not ever overdrink, but I sure do slur. And so now she's got a rumor going that, I'm a drunk. And what I am
Yeah.
is a stroke survivor.
No, yeah, and she did the same thing to me. In the last week alone, she's defamed me even after I sent her a cease and desist and she acknowledged it. She's saying that I'm a drug addict, that I'm a prostitute, that that I hate my kids, that I'm abusive, that I'm all these names in the book. And she's telling people that I've gone to rehab before, which is I've never ever gone to rehab. She's telling people I'm a drug addict. I don't do drugs. And like, I also have PTSD. I also have medical cannabis for PTSD, and I've had it for 10 years, and it's never once been an issue in court. It's never once been an issue at all. And everybody I know that is in the same program.
Well, even Trump, we all encouraged Trump to finally sign that freaking EO to make the scheduling of pot. And that happened 2 days after she started trashing me about it.
Yeah,
But
and like,
would you mind telling me what else she said about me just so I can clear up any rumors?
well, she actually blocked me on Facebook, but I just like Googled,
Okay.
like, if I just Google, like, her name and your name next to each other on Google, like a bunch of posts come up where it says like, beware, Kathlee Arthur, Kristen Mitchell, a few others. After our education panel, October 20th, Kathlee tried to poach Kristen as well as rewrote Francesca Amato's bill to fit her own agenda. And I can't see the rest of it because she blocked me. But then another post, I can see that it says, Kathleen Arthur would sneak into my event. And what I mean by that was, yeah, she was invited after much begging on her part. And I don't know what else, but if she unblocked me, I'd be able to read them all.
Did she sound like she was begging when she was talking about me?
She was using you as clout to draw in more followers because nobody, and like,
see, again, the only additional comment that I want to make about Francesca is it's really easy she's not the first, she won't be the last. Okay. She had a unique idea about the copywriting, right? And I don't disagree with that actually until you actually present it to Congress and then you lose it. That is if you're a control freak and you want to keep 100% control of the bill. Now, where Francesca went wrong is if she had edited the floor mat and stuff like that, they probably would have accepted it. But she went to Chuck Schumer's office with two people who I won't say what their name is. And she really gave it to him and wanted him to do the bill. Well, she had told those two people before they went into the office that Chuck Schumer's office was 100% on board with the bill and that they were going to allow it to get a number and stuff. Well, they got in there and the aide didn't have any idea what the bill was. And when she asked Francesca, she was very hostile. And then Chuck Schumer's aide told her in front of those two witnesses that she was not going to support her bill, period. And so they left, all three of them. And then the one person said to Francesca, we just more or less got kicked out. And I thought you said that they were going to support our bill 100%. And Francesca turned around and she had like a bunch of people in DC, right, for a few days. She turned around, she left Schumer's office. Then she left DC. She left everything and everybody in DC because she was so mad about what happened in Chuck Schumer's office. And then one of those two people went on to a different appointment with Chuck Grassley, who also told her that they were not going to be supporting her bill. And if you can't get the head of the Democrats and the head of the Senate to agree to your bill, it's a no-go. It's just rest in peace, Francesca. And then I was forwarded this horrid rant that she went on about Grassley's office, how, we don't need them. We can bully over them. We'll do whatever we want. it was just very violent, it seemed to me, and really, really angry at Grassley's office. So, I hate to tell this to her people, but her bill is dead upon arrival. And that doesn't matter because there are literally right now hundreds and hundreds of bill that says, in essence, the same thing. And there is only one set of laws we need to change. And there's only several solutions that we need to change in order to fix things. And no matter how many bills we do or do not pass, I have Grassley's office working on the new family legislation. We are working on it, guys. That's why I'm asking people to send me your version of your bill so that I can include it. I've got hundreds of bills that I'm going through, and it's going very well. My first meetings, I actually got a series of meetings in January. My first will be, I think, the 5th.
Yeah, and I had tried to make like a proposed draft of a possible like federal legislation earlier last year, and I didn't really know like what the process was, so I just tried to make a petition, and I think like I got several thousand signatures of a petition, and I tried to send certified because I'm from Connecticut, so I tried to send certified mailing to Richard Blumenthal's office as well as Rosa DeLaura's office, and we had like confirmed that they received it. Their office was silent. They never even said a word. And so I was discouraged after that. But,
don't be discouraged. What you need to do is just make another, what we're going to do is as soon as I get all of the bills together, right? And then what I'll do is I'll publish everybody's report. And then I'm going to include the original author wherever I got whatever issue. And there'll probably be multiple because a lot of people are in agreement upon what the issues are. And then we're going to go to DC. First of all, we will get Chuck Schumer to give us a bill number. And then we'll go around and get the rest of them to do it. And it should be easy peasy.
Yeah. And I'm just looking over here at the comments. People said, thank you so much for telling us what really happened about Fran. That Fran loves to say that she'll email you and that she never does. And somebody said, so Kathleen Arthur, are there any bills that will pass soon that will help the parents and children of America?
Yes, we are working on it right now as we speak.
And also, I think we had another comment saying that she did that to me years ago. We help veterans get off opiates with cannabis. We grow both cannabis and we are federally licensed to grow hemp. She called me a drug dealer and live in a trailer. And that's why she's attached to Meg. And Fran will say, God told her to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I
don't know if you guys are aware, but there are several different people starting class action lawsuits against Fran for similar, what's it called? Slander.
Well, I should join that one because she's slandering me and she's
look it up. There's actually, I think 2 or 3 people who are organizing this. It's that common. And so that's actually what I would advise is to take legal remedy. And I also have been told, I have no idea, and let me emphasize this, no idea if this is true or not, but I've told now by 2 different sources that Fran is actually now under FBI investigation because of her slander to the Congress people.
Yeah. And, she's got FBI complaints coming out by the day. And, she's had many, I've read complaints that were sent to the FBI on her as well. And it seems to me a little bit suspicious that like, she's been doing this for almost 20 years now, 18 years now she's been doing this. And how is somebody still able to doing fraud for so long and not get away with it? And, it's like, you have to think like, I just looked up a photo of
it's amazing. She's doing this and she's not even the federal government and getting away with it. I thought only the federal government got away with stuff like that, which makes you think maybe,
maybe there's some other like, nefarious thing going on. And like I had just went in my iCloud photo library and I typed in the word Francesca to see if I had any like screenshots from any of her posts from recently. And I saw, and something popped up a screenshot from, I guess that she commented on one of my videos on TikTok back on August 3rd, 2024. And she said I sometimes, like, I'll get a lot of people comment things and say things. And like, if I want to remember to do it, I'll screenshot it and like email it to myself and like do it later. So like I screenshot this because I was like, oh, let me check into this. And it was Francesca. She wrote on my TikTok and she goes, she can go to book talk link on punishedforbeingaaparent.com and start the process. I'm sure I could help her deal with crazy, convoluted cases all over the country, and we have great successes. So she's literally on my page advertising that if I go and book a talk with her on her website, that she can help deal with my case. How is that not soliciting yourself as a some type of lawyer or legal assistant? And then I actually tried to talk to her, and then it was, oh, pay the $250 fee before we can book the call. And so it's like, if I can't even talk to you for 1 second, for 1 minute, with
I have heard this now about 200 times. So I am so sorry that you went through that. You know, the bottom line is that the good volunteers, you can tell by the fruit of their works. And there are a shitload of good volunteers out there. Good volunteers also do not charge money. Family Forward is one organization, and there's organizations in almost every state of the union. There is ways to get advice from your peers without, going to either lawyers and Fran are both in the same bucket. They want to get paid for what they do.
Yeah, and like I think about,
and if you want to explain Fran's behavior, just look at her, and instead of her, see a female Trump, right? Lie, try to, basically what she's really doing is she's projecting the future that she sees and wants to have happen. Lives her life as it has happened. Fran just works right like Trump does in terms of her modus of operandi. But you can see whether somebody is, really doing good work or not by the fruit of their works. What is their work yielding? She's told everybody that she's a hair's breadth from getting a bill number. There isn't one. There's not ever going to be one through her. But good news is, because of all this stuff that are bad mouthing at me, and this is really hysterical, guys. This is just got to be the work of God. Anyway, Francesca was bad mouthing me, and people are going to Grassley's office and talking about it. So what did they do? As gallantly men who I've worked with 10 years now, they defended me. Cha-cha! They got out their swords and they defended me. And they told everybody that I know of who's contacted me about this that they should be working with me because I know how to write bills. And so by her complaining about me, she actually got me to be a policy advisor for Senator Grassley's office. So now I am a policy advisor for Trump's office on Title IV, and I am a policy advisor for Senator freaking Grassley's office on Title IV issues, and well attended and well listened to. They put my stuff over to HHS, and then they take care of it.
And she was still trying to pretend that Grassley and all of them were still working with her. She's still trying to pretend that this bill is real, and her followers and people in her group.
It's not even a bill. It's a suggested bill. It doesn't have a bill number. It just doesn't. It's never going to. So I would just say zen, be calm. She's out the door. Yeah. And all we can do is focus our energies truly on those actions that will help the bill that is desperately needed to get through the door. And we're already through the door. We're actually making the bread part right now. It's rising. And I'm my first set of meetings is January 5th, and then I'm going to just be in DC all month. And I'm going to be presenting different people's bills. I'm starting with the Troll Enroll group. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before. But they
No.
asked me to do the same, do what I do, which is to go through their bill and present it as an index to Congress so that they'll know exactly what parts of the title or the SSA laws that are being broken. Because again, what we're doing is we're taking their powers, which is the power of the purse and the power to write laws. Those are the only two things that they can do. So we're going backwards. We start with the things that they can do. Then we look for problems in the laws that are occurring. Then we look for solutions. And so what I've done with Troll and Roll is I just looked at the Title IV issues that they wanted to in their bill. And I weeded all the other stuff out because frankly, I have no idea. They are very smart and detailed and have a lot of unfortunate lived experience. And I just don't know really at all what a lot of the problems and solutions were that they were talking about. So they agreed to let me just focus on what I do know and what I am an expert. So I've got like an index in front of their bill that we can go through and say, these are the problems, these are the recommended solutions within this bill just for this part. There's bunches of other problems and solutions too, but this is kind of categorized in a way that the Congress legislative aides can know exactly what to do. I'm leaving no room for error here. None. These guys, I'm not kidding. They're all 35 and they don't even know what the different titles are. They do not. They don't even know how to read Roman nomenclature, most of them.
Wow. That's because they just keep watering down the education and these schools and like
No, I think in the case of Congress, it's not lack of education. These guys are smart as it is. It's just that up until really AI, you couldn't get even like a good grasp on what the hell the Social Security titles were and how they were funded and stuff like that. It was very convoluted to get it. But now it's very clear exactly what they do, where they are, where the paragraphs are. These guys don't have the lived experience. These are all wealthy, silver spoon babies that are 35 years old here at our Congress to do residency for 1 year and then go off and make lots of money somewhere as a lawyer. These kids don't have the lived experience onto what's happening with the child support issues or the foster care issues. They just do not. I used to attend a lot of meetings with Connie Reguli from the Family Forward Project, and she would talk to these guys and she'd go, blah, 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 Title 4E. And then she'd go, blah, 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 Title 4D, blah, 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 Title 4B. And they would nod and be very respectful and look very interested. And then it would be my turn to talk. I would look out and I go, do you know what Title 4E is?
me.
No.
Oh, you're
I
saying you
asked
see it to them?
the Congress legislative aid. But I'm going to tell you what, they all responded exactly like you did. Me? You want me to tell you what Title 40 is? And I said, yes. And then I literally would just sit there.
Yeah, and I see.
And nothing
I want to
until
address.
they had to admit they have no idea what we were talking about. That happened enough times to where Connie told me to knock it off.
Wow.
They don't have the power of the purse. They don't even know what they're funding. They don't know what the problems are. The congressional members and the Senate and Congress do not even have an idea about what the purse is. They fight about stupid little issues here and there, but the overall purse that are affecting people and causing these problems, they are not looking in. There's an amount of fraud in our state governments right now that are getting federal funding that is unprecedented fraud.
Yeah, and I just want to address a few of these comments people were saying over here on the live stream. And one person said, she goes, we have so much work to be done and so many people that need help. Do we really have time to spend exposing the fake or half-ass ones out here? And I replied to her and I said, yes, because I think it's so important, because when you have, like, for instance, with this whole fake Family Justice and Accountability Act thing, Like cannot tell you how many women and men were saying to me back in August, September, oh, I'm praying so hard that everything will change on October 20th. On October 20th, we're depending on this. I know people who saved up for months to buy a plane ticket to DC, who these people don't even have any money. They've used their last dollar to go to DC thinking that this is a life-changing thing. And that is the problem, because people like Francesca, and I'm not doing this, like, if you notice, like, difference between me and Francesca, all I've done is criticize her for lying, for deceiving people, for scamming people and conning people. All she's done in response is to attack me and do personal attacks and call me names and defame me and use that kind of stuff and go contact my ex and all these people who hate me to try to talk trash. I'm not talking trash about her. I'm speaking facts, and I'm trying to say to people, look, from the very start, when people kept saying to me, oh, check out this Family Justice Act. This is going to help you. This is going to help you. I said, really? How about the fact that there's so much existing legislation out there that's not being enforced? There are laws on the books that are being ignored and not being enforced. What are we doing? I said, is this another bill? What in the bill can guarantee that's actually going to be enforced? And then she puts this thing in the very beginning. And that's how I even got a copy of the bill, because even though they signed NDAs and they said they weren't going to send it, people sent it out, and I got a copy right here. And so she had said in the very beginning, the first thing, that she wants an independent oversight committee that can immediately, upon enactment, vested with authority to wrongful removal review. Okay, so like this is an example for the first one. It says, immediately review and rectify all cases in which children have been wrongfully removed from their families, restoring such children without delay, except where there is clear and convincing evidence of imminent and continuing danger. So like full stop, like that is such this makes no sense, right? Because like, for example, the words children who have been wrongfully removed from their families. Who determines whether the removal was wrongful or not? How is that determination made? And how do you get around the fact where anyone can just make false accusations, and then it's so much harder to prove that something didn't happen than to prove that it did? So to say that there needs to be clear and convincing evidence, and then saying, the committee will be comprised of independent members of the public, but who's going to appoint those people? And are those people having financial incentives? Like, there's just, this thing is like a wish list of something that'll never happen except in fake reality land. And I think that's why I'm doing this. And that's why I speak up, not to be malicious, but to tell people, look, don't pay Francesca Amato $3,000 for her to go on ChatGPT and do an ADA accommodation motion. And she was so mad that one of the women in her group couldn't afford to give her $3,000. And I offered to help her. And I said, look, like you mentioned before about volunteer, and I've said this before in other episodes, that like, if you're going to volunteer your time all the time and help people 100% of the time and never charge money, you need to have another way to support yourself. You need to have family, you need to have another source of income, or you need to be affiliated with a nonprofit organization or other company that gets donations and funding and then pays you for your time. Nobody works for free out there and doesn't have other ways to pay their bills. And so like, if I'm saying to somebody like, okay, I can help you with this for a very, very reasonable fee, $100, $150. And they're saying that this person wants $3,000. Francesca was so angry by that she decided to pay me for my time to help her out of appreciation. And she lost a potential $3,000 client from that woman. And that person was in her group, and she was supporting her, and she was one of the team leads for her state and all that stuff. And so then she kicked her out of the group. She told everybody that from now on, they're banned from talking to any other advocates. They can't talk to social media advocates, any advocacy groups. They can't align with anybody. And they have to sign a contract saying that if they don't agree to only talk to Fran, and they can't appear on podcasts, they can't speak publicly without Fran's consent. And if they are allowed to speak publicly, they have to talk about the Family Justice Accountability Act and give shout out to Fran Amato, and she gets the exclusive rights to all the footage. And so it's like all this with her trying to like publicly attack me now. And like, and if you look, like her entire platform on all of her pages is all about me. There's nothing about her fake bill. There's nothing about anything she's doing to help parents. And so like, if her thing is dedicated to just trash talking me and trying to like collude with my ex, and like, this is what she's known to do, then I think people should be warned, like, not only don't give her your money, don't do business with her, don't associate with her, don't believe in this fake movement. Because if I see people like victims of a cult, I'm going to speak up. I'm going to say what I have to say. If you guys don't want to listen, and then to her question where she says, do we have time? We have so much work to be done. Okay, but this is the work to be done. And so with that being said, another person had asked, like, if people have, potential bills and things that they want you to review, can they send them to you? And if so, where can they send them?
Sure. I have a dedicated email for it, and
Okay.
it's KATARTKAT@gmail.com. And so when I'm,
A like Apple, ATARKAT
no, it's
Sorry.
cat, KAT, cat,
Okay. Mhm.
and then art, ART,
Okay.
and then cat
So
at gmail.com.
KATARTKAT
I'm going to
@gmail.com.
write this out for you.
Okay, I'm gonna type it in the comments too here,
Mhm.
so people can see. So cat, basically cat art cat, and cats
Uh-huh.
with a K @gmail for any proposed and federal legislation, right?
So what I'm doing is I'm working with Senator Grassley's team, and he is, an easy way to understand this is he's the oldest and most senior member of Senate. He is the one who decides what bills go in the pile to be voted on. It has to go through Senator Grassley's office in order to get there. So if he approves of the bill and then Chuck Schumer approves of the bill, it's probably just going to be put on the stack and pass without even needing a vote. That's how we did the Family First Act and the Look Back bill and the Zika virus bill. So here's my email. I'm sorry I didn't get it all that good, but
Okay, got it.
got it. Okay, good.
I wrote it.
So I would like to respond a little bit to what you said. If we are at war with the federal government because of due process issues and then essentially making any business out of taking people's children, taking money, that sort of stuff, which they have, for profit, which it is. It's like you want to organize your weapons correctly. So what I always do is my favorite book is The Art of War. And I look to see what the art of war would say about a situation. And so what the art of war basically would say about Francesca is that she is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal at mobilizing people. She just is. There is no doubt about it. But she absolutely sucks at writing bills. We all know that too. She also cannot make it about anything but her. In the end of any decision that she makes, as far as I can see, is she has a choice between giving up her pride and just working for the interests of the children or promoting herself. She chooses the latter every time. Okay. So then, okay, those are the facts. Now, what do we do about that? The art of war would say, take whatever weapons you have in whatever way that you have them and use them to your best advantage. So what we want to do is if she has a huge crowd that's following her, yet there's some non-truths going on, we would have to evaluate, is this hurting the movement or is this helping the movement? The movement, in terms of getting Grassley's ass in gear and, getting the bill written is actually been helped by Francesca's because of all of the controversy. We would not be on the map if it wasn't for all the bullshit and lying that Francesca has done. They have stepped up and they're being, gallant heroes now, basically. In part because I was attacked and they know me, in part because they finally really started reading this shit. So we know that she's great at mobilizing people. But the problem is that she's lying and taking money from them also. We also know that that bill isn't going to go anywhere. Okay. So what I would suggest that everybody who has an issue like Francesca to do is to watch a movie called The Secret. And what The Secret is how to get what you want. In other words, it is proven, and I know this is absolutely true, whatever you put your energy into is what happens. So if you're putting energy into, negative things will happen, even if you don't want them to. It really is just what's rolling around, rent free in your brain. And so you have to kind of like purposely like know that, okay, what I want is this, and that is what I'm going to put my energy in. Do that and simultaneously figure out a way that as just a very neutral outside figure, you can do what is within your power to stop harm being done, right? And just by posting this, you've done your due diligence, basically. You have let folks know you were there. You've witnessed this, as have hundreds of others, literally. And so unless there's specific justice to be sought, which would be the class action lawsuit, I would actually just change all of your kind of focus of energy to what the hell could help these children and parents so that they're not losing their children anymore. And that enemy isn't Francesca. That's HHS and Congress and the power of the purse and the ability to write legislature. And we're getting very close. And we need to focus on that and let everybody else, everything else that we can go and focus our energies on that. And read the Federalist Papers because controversy is part of the process. Controversy was a necessary part of this process. We have been floating around knowing awful things for a long time that Congress has not been working on with time for child support and foster care. They've known about this stuff for ever since the No Place to Grow Up hearing about the sex trafficking and stuff like that, and really has not taken the time to get a handle on what's going on and then the solutions. And frankly, they are still not taking the time to look at this and come up with the solutions. That's what we are doing, not me and the parents who are sending me their bills, that we're letting them know these are what the problems are and these are what the solutions are, without any huff or fluff or memorandums or declarations or what have you. Just this is the problem. This needs to be done. And this is where inside of your realm of responsibility, which is the power of the purse and federal legislation, this is what needs to be fixed specifically.
Yeah, definitely. And like also, to your point, I think it's important also, and myself was also scammed, not by Francesca. I never gave her any money, but there was other people out there who are on TikTok and they sort of do the same thing where they prey on people's desperation. Like one woman, she said that, she could help get my case to the Supreme Court. And if I give her $1,500, she'll get me this thing by this day. And then we'll go to the next step. And when I was so desperate and so like broken mentally and like in that mind state with all the trauma, I was like willing to spend any price to try to get help, to try to get justice. And I spent thousands and thousands of dollars to lawyers, to consultations, to these people, that people. And then it's like, you realize this person's a scammer. They're just trying to make money off of it. And that's why I said, I was saying like, I have multiple copies of the ADA motion that Francesca has done for other people that she charges between $2,700 to $3,000 per document. And I said, if anybody needs one done, I'll do it for free because I'm just going to use hers as a template. So you're getting the exact same thing that she would have given to you. And it's going to be free because why should we charge when ChatGPT did it and ChatGPT did it for free? So it's like, I think anybody who is just looking at people who are so desperate and if you prey on people's desperation and you know that this person is weak, they are beaten down, they're willing to do anything, and then it's like you come in like a shark that smells blood in the water, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna go get this money, and it's like, no. And it's like, a lot of people that are involved with these things that they have their kids, or like their kids are aged out, and it's like they're in it not because they believe in it, but it's because it's going to make them more popular or get more views, which, remember, views equals money on social media. And so that's another big part of a lot of it. But I do think that, it's hard when you see, like, people will send me things all the time and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I don't like write stuff off without looking at it. I look at it, I'll do my own research and stuff like that. And at first I was basically saying, like, okay, maybe this thing sounds good in theory, but how are we going to make sure it's enforced? And then it's like, oh no, well, it's a secret. No one can see the bill. And so it's like, okay, well, that's a red flag. Like if someone says to me, well, I lost my kids and there was corruption, I said, okay, let me see the court documents. Oh, I can't show you. I don't have it. Red flag. You know what I mean? Like if somebody's not going to be transparent with you about what's going on, then they're more than likely hiding something. And so I think that, being able to, like, if you're going to jump on a movement or be involved with an advocacy group or something, make sure you understand what it is they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish, what their goals are, and that you're doing something that makes sense and is logical, because a lot of people can feed into like people's like wishful thinking and like desperation. And it's like, oh my God, this is a one size fits all. This is going to save us all. We're all going to get our kids back. Like, and then it doesn't happen. And then people get so devastated.
And it's actually very easy to determine this, right? When you have a leader, all you have to do is look at the fruit of their works. Period. That's all you have to do. And that's a guarantee, whether it's a good lawyer or a bad lawyer. If you have somebody saying, we're going to get a bill number in 24 hours under a emergency congressional session or whatever it is that she said, and then that doesn't happen, that's a sign that the fruit of their works are not good. When she says we're going to have a bill number and they don't, that is a sign of the fruit of their works. She has said that this was the beginning of a revolution, and she hasn't successfully launched it. And she has shut herself out to the key players that would get her bill passed. So she can continue, you know what I'm saying, to get the pump up and the motion. These people really, really aren't for Francesca. They're for the corruption becoming changed. And it'll be a split moment whenever God decides to switch it over. So again, I wouldn't put too much effort into the movement's dissolution part. I would just put some motion into making sure that you have disclosed what you know is the truth and the lies that are going out, and then perhaps civil remedy, right? That's always okay to do. And there's a lot of people out there who want to do it. So I would encourage you to do that too. That'll actually help get the truth out there. But I wouldn't like go actively campaigning against her, because that'll only take away from the energy that you could be using to get actual change passed.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would be interested in hearing about more of the things that you're working on. And also, I know that some other people that were Kristen, who met with Richard Blumenthal, and Francesca was there, I guess. And, they said after the fact that Blumenthal's office said that, we would be willing to be involved if you agree to attach federal funding to the bill. And then she's like, no, I'm not going to attach federal funding. So then they're like, okay, well, we're not interested. We're going to work with somebody who's willing to cooperate with whatever we're willing to do. And so it's like, you're just like so stubborn that it's like, no, it's my way or the highway. And you're just going to like shut the door, and anybody who could potentially help you or network with you or open the door to another opportunity, then it's like, you're just fighting yourself. And it's like, then it shows like, it's all about like ego and an illusion.
But I also want to reflect back. Think about what has happened for the movement and that Blumenthal office meeting. with Francesca. Was that good for the movement or was that bad for the movement? I would argue it was excellent for the movement. They're defending the fact that they need to write a bill. That just isn't the right one, aren't they now?
Yeah, and they're actually responding. I was like, wow, Blumenthal
Yeah.
didn't answer me, but
So
he's answered you. That's good.
she's not doing herself any good, but the very act of her just being a disruptor is actually helping the movement. Now, I want to make this very clear. I do not agree with what she's doing. She is lying. What she's doing is wrong, but some things we can't do anything about. We can do what we can, but not to feel actually bad. Kind of sit back and laugh, say, thank you, right?
Yeah, I mean, at least if all through all this buzz, and that's why it's like everything happens for a reason, and sometimes it's like
Yeah.
a blessed disguise. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if this
I think that's what
inspired,
it is.
yeah, and like people like, that's have been, working with you now after like Kristen and stuff like that, are trying to do things that are actually realistic and things that can
Yes.
actually come to
Yes.
fruition, not just imagination and delusion. And so do you want to
Mhm.
speak a little bit more about kind of what your plans are for moving forward in 2026, kind of what you're working on and what your ideas are? Because I
Okay.
believe personally that with Title IV
Mhm.
E and D, and this being such a money making machine, that there may be some like resistance from, Congress to try to like jump on board, because it's like everybody's bread and butter. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts of how we
So
can fix?
sure. Now, let me just kind of review this with you a little bit in terms of their bread and butter. It's not Congress's bread and butter. They made the law that's funding the states. The only ones who are going to object to this is the states, and they are going to scream like hell. Congress itself is unaware of the problem until very recently, even though they should know. And the only reason their Grass's office is getting really into is because I've been working with the same guy for 5 years. And so he really finally just got it, really, in terms of commitment to doing something after Francesca started causing disruption. Not because he wants Francesca's bill, but it made him look into it, basically. Now, what I'm doing right now, currently this month in January, is I'm working on a very serious crime that's being committed, and I'm trying to get some movement in terms of both legislation and power of the purse on it. Basic facts is we know that foster children are entering foster care, then they vanish. Then they are not being reported. Approximately 70% of the episodes where foster children disappear and vanish, they are not correctly reported, as is required by federal law. And this non-reporting of foster children who are missing means that no one's looking for them. They don't have 911 calls. They do not have reports to the National Center for Missing Children. Recently, there's been a HHS report and a Connecticut audit stating that foster children are not always reported missing. And it was proven in the state of Connecticut in particular. Actually, there was a overall government one that showed this too. In the state of Connecticut, 70%-ish of the children who go missing who are foster children are not reported. They're putting on an illegal status, not only by Connecticut, but we have identified 20 other states who are using this status. The federal law is clear. If a child goes missing, you're to call 911 and the National Center for Missing Children if that person is a foster child and getting federal funds. It's a federal law contingent upon them getting those funds. So they have now literally invented all across the nation a new term. And this we just found out 2 months ago because of the Connecticut audit. Then as a response, they had a hearing where the head of HHS said, this is a quote, "It's just not true that there are that many thousands of children missing. They're just AWOL." And so what does AWOL mean? It means that they're missing. They think they know where they're at, but they don't report them. So all of these children are being designated as AWOL. all across the nation. No one is looking for them. 911 wasn't called. These children are missing without permission. They cannot get a normal job, right? You go to McDonald's and get a job, you're on the record. They're going to find you. So these girls are forced into prostitution. And the HHS head of Connecticut even said that 10% of the children that are AWOL, even though they're not reported missing, they have no idea where they are. So through U.S. Marshal raids and others, we have found out that approximately 60% of all of the prostitution or the child sex trafficking that is occurring is supplied through the HHS. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said in the Oval Office that HHS is the primary supply source of sex trafficking in America. We already knew that. What we didn't know was how was it happening? How are these children getting lost without a trace and ending up in sex trafficking? And so now we know. It's because of a pretend term called AWOL that is an illegal term. And it's not federally recognized. And it's spread like wildfire because AWOL means you don't have to report these children. And remember, it's payment per day, per head count. And when they report these children missing, they don't get paid anymore. So they're
Wow.
getting paid to not report these children missing by making this new phrase of AWOL. And so I have a bill that I've already given to Senator Grassley aides that we're working on, really quick one, just to amend the current law that'll add accountability. Right now, if a social worker fails to report a child who's missing, and some of these children were up for 2 years missing, failed to report, continued to get the federal money. If the child died or was sex trafficked, there's never been not one state actor who failed to report punished because we have a federal law with no consequences to it. If you disobey the federal law, and fail to report a child, you will actually be rewarded with more money and less work. And there's never been a prosecution on one of them. So we're going to add, if there is a failure to report, that they're not reporting as is current law, and the child is sex trafficked or die, there's a minimum 30 days prison for that social worker. It's a personal civil punishment. That would, and then we're also going to demand an injunction, the stop of the term of AWOL, and immediately demand federal use of the current law to be instated and followed, or the funding's going to go. And the climate is with the Minneapolis stuff that they're finding out with fraud, that is a tip of the iceberg as to what's going on in terms of inter-HHS and state fraud.
You know, I really think the stuff you're saying about the AWOL is so interesting. And when I saw, I think you posted about it earlier, I think I shared it, and it was fascinating to me because I'm from Connecticut, and there's been times in the past, like if I was to make a report, like concerns my child is being abused by the father and things like that, where I've called the DCF care line, and it's like, you know, 1-800 number, but you say that word, I'm like, where have I heard that before? When you call the Connecticut DCF care line, it'll say like, if you'd like to make a report of abuse or neglect, press 1. If you'd like to report an AWOL child, press 2.
See?
And you can call it yourself. Anyone can call it up and hear this. And then it's like, so they're not reporting it to the NCIC. They're not reporting it to the police. They're reporting it internally within themselves to their own
right.
DCF system. And also, I want to mention that I did research into this because a lot of times with like the Title IV funding, which I'm just, in the last year, I've learned a lot more than I knew in the past about this, and I'm still learning more. But when I researched recently, I learned that in every state, they have different ways that they like receive the money through Title IV. And so it's like, if they consider like a removal under federal law, there's certain requirements to be considered a removal. Many people will think it means putting a child into foster care, but under these definitions and in Connecticut, they can still bill under Title IV-E, even if it's a removal from custodial parent to non-custodial parent, like what they did to me. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, in some states, they have like certain nonprofits and certain things that they funnel all the funding through. But in states like Connecticut, it's the judicial branch and DCF itself that does. So whether you're going, whether they remove your child from you and bring your child to the other parent, or if they remove your child from you and put them in foster care, either way, they're billing. And the catch is, as long as you have a active case or like a supervision of your case. But in Connecticut, supervision of your case just means that you have a case that exists on the docket, and they never close cases. And like, I always used to wonder, why don't these cases ever close? They stay open indefinitely. Well, that's because they can continue to still billing that, saying that the case has supervision. And
have you run that scenario through AI and traced it back to the actual federal law? Because that sounds like fancy interpretation of federal law that doesn't sound correct.
I have, because like somebody from another state in Ohio was saying that in Ohio, the funding comes
No, what
from—
I'm saying is, I think that it is happening, right? I agree that it's happening, but they are twisting the rules that they're supposed to be working by.
Right. Exactly. Like, it's supposed to only be for adoptions and foster care, but they're twisting it and saying, oh, now we can milk it this way, we can milk it that way. And it's gotten so. And one more thing I want to say about the AWOL thing is, it makes so much sense, because I've talked to many people who've been in foster care in Connecticut, and every single one said that they have been sexually abused in foster care. And
oh my God, it's so prevalent. It really is.
And to become a foster parent, it's 1,000 times easier to sign up to be a foster parent than it is to like get custody of your own children. Like, they'll make you do drug tests, background, this, that, just to get your kids back. But foster care, don't sign on the line, pay the fee, you're good, right? So these people are predators. Like, a lot of times predators, some people might have good intentions. I haven't seen any stories of somebody saying, I had a good experience in foster care. I mean, I have one friend that was raised by foster parents with her brother and sister, and they grew up with me and they ended up being good people. So that's one example. But recently, it seems like a lot of these predators gravitate towards this because it's a paycheck, and that also meets the definition of sex trafficking. If you're removing by force somebody to go into a home where they're now going to have to be forced into sex acts, and that person is getting paid because of that, then that's just sex trafficking. And when they're hiding it with this AWOL system, like you just brought up, which is really, really interesting and a really excellent discovery that you're saying, it's a way for them to do this trafficking undetected. And there was a case recently with a girl, I think she just is 18 now, or she aged out, but she was put in foster care in Connecticut. They placed her with a foster parent. Then said foster parent sold her or gave her to a friend, and DCF had no idea, or they did, or they didn't care. It's undetected, AWOL knows. And then that girl ended up being with that other guy who wasn't even the real foster, it was somebody else. And he impregnated her at the age of 12. He raped her every day for like her whole entire life that she was with him. And she had thousands of times being raped, and had his child and got pregnant by him. And they still didn't remove her from him. And only after she aged out did she now suing for millions of dollars. I don't know the status of what's going on with that, but it made the news and stuff. And so it just shows you, like, that's somebody who probably was reported as AWOL and then disappeared.
Yes, absolutely. AWOL is killing children. AWOL is causing the major chain of sex trafficking. Everybody's talking about Epstein right now. It frankly kind of irritates me. He's a dead guy with a list. There's supply and then there's demand. Epstein is the demand. I'm a little more concerned about the supply side of children from foster care, who is our nation's supply of sex trafficked children at this point. Majority of the children, which is statistically impossible. Foster children are 0.5% of the American child population. How can they be 60 to 70% of the sex trafficked children? That is logically inconsistent. It has to have some sort of a chain of events that are happening. And we didn't really know exactly where the leak was in the dam that was leaking out the foster children, like in thousands and thousands. And now we do. It's the AWOL term that's being used. That is what is leaking our children. We know where the supply is. We know where the crack, and we know how to frickin' fill that crack so that the children are not being leaked out into sex trafficking anymore. That is so much more of a story than Epstein. Our government is pimping our children for money.
No, you're totally right. And honestly, like this discovery is really like, I think a key to what's going on because
Well,
like,
you're the first gal that I've given this to online because really it's just been this last week that I discovered it and chased it down and made sure it was true, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah. And like, you know, if you think about it too, because like, you know, there was a time, one instance where I did not bring my daughter back to my ex because of safety concerns. And he called the police, reported her missing. She was entered into an NCIC database. She was reported missing with a silver alert. And it was all over the news. It was all over Facebook. It was all over everything. And I cannot tell you how fast they tracked me down. They tracked me down. They knew exactly where I was. They knew exactly what I spent on my credit cards. It's like it's a murder investigation. And so it's like, I'm like, wow, they used so many resources and went above and beyond to find me and proved that if they want to find a missing kid, they're going to find a missing kid. They know exactly how to track you down. But if you,
do you know that the Center for Missing Children do not look for foster children by design. It is written, the Center for Missing Children only looks for children who are kidnapped. And almost every single foster child, if they're even reported, are listed as a runaway. The Center for Missing Children do not look for runaways or AWOL children, period. So foster children aren't even looked for. That's why you guys got so many resources, because actually, literally, Title IV-E, foster care money is being given to the National Center for Missing Children to not look for foster children. So they got to find some kid. They are so dysfunctional and corrupt. It's awful.
because they don't want to find them. If they wanted to,
It's
they
by
would.
design. It's by design. Yeah, they don't
Exactly.
even, they're funded by Title. Now, this is corruption, right? They're funded by Title IV-E, and yet they don't look for Title IV-E kids.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, I know recently there was some executive order put in about like kids who aged out of foster care. And I know like, you know, a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is to do with foster care and preventing this trafficking. Are there any things that you're working on or ideas that you have coming up about, you know, people like me who have our kids getting removed and put with the other parent without due process from the family courts? Because a lot of times CPS, you know, CPS
So
and
that
DCF
specifically is a Title IV-E issue, which is child support and custody issues, which is not Title IV-E. So what I would suggest that you and everybody else out there who's having any sort of a Title IV-D issue, which I've never had that lived experience, so I'm not as familiar with it, but you are the folks that I would really like to send me your prop. All you have to do actually is just go on AI, tell them what your specific problem is, what state you're in, give it a few details and say, which parts of the Social Security funding were incorrectly or can tie back to, or write me a bill, basically, from this information that will help. And it'll spit out lots of good things, and then just throw it through 2 or 3 other AIs to make sure what it's telling you is correct, because sometimes it's not. Boy, I've heard some whoppers from AI before. So always make sure, double check every word and stuff like that. But then submit them to me, and I can get that information through a thing and actually bring up an index, and you will be part of the solution. If we don't hear from you, whoever we are hearing from, we'll get the priority until I've actually got the whole thing accumulated, which will probably be the end of January. That's my last appointment with Grassley's office. So the other ones will be building toward it and, you know, getting them to move their asses.
Yeah, like I'll absolutely send something to you because like,
Okay,
you know,
good.
similarities where like a lot of times too, like DCF in Connecticut, they're considered the state. So like when you try to sue them, the Attorney General's office
Yeah,
files
so
a
you
motion to
can't
dismiss.
sue the state. You can only sue individuals. But if you can find a leak, like for example, we can sue the social workers who are failing to report the foster children. Those are human beings. I mean, in order for a foster kid to go missing, it takes a freaking village. The teacher knows, the foster parent knows, the social
Well,
worker knows, the person who gets
believe
the
it
bus funding knows. And
believe it
so
or
you
not,
have
they
to
put in
sue those
laws that
people.
they put in laws that says like GALs, basically anybody that works for the state has like absolute immunity. So they
No,
give them
there's
these
no
state
such
laws.
thing as absolute immunity. There used to be in concept absolute immunity, but states all over the nation, in particular federal, not states, but federal level. Because if you have like a RICO or something like that, that's corruption within that, and you can name the names of the actual people who have done these actual actions, you certainly can sue them. And they are not immune if they've committed crimes. See, immunity is supposed to be for lawful acts. And if you can prove that they committed a lawful, in an, a non-lawful act, they don't have immunity for that. That is proven federal law. So, like for example, RICOs have both state versions and federal versions. I would always go federal with any legislation against the state actors, because federal courts generally allow cameras, and that reduces a lot of mischief. And federal courts have succeeded in getting a lot of different federal agents, the actual workers, in trouble and accountable for their actions. Sean McMillan is a good lawyer who's done a lot of that sort of work. He's gotten, I think, the first ever actual RICO cases twice now in the nation that were successful. So it is happening.
Yeah, and I mean it's not easy though, because like I filed
No.
a
But
federal
it's
RICO lawsuit.
easier with
You wanna
AI, right?
Yeah, but you want to hear something funny? You could have the best complaint, the best argument, the best everything, but when there's corruption, you don't stand a chance. And like, just for instance, right? You said that they don't have immunity, this and that. Well, I filed a federal RICO lawsuit, and it was in the District of Connecticut, and Connecticut Attorney General William Tong's office filed appearances for every single judge, every state employee, every DCF worker I named. He filed an appearance for them. And he filed a motion to dismiss my lawsuit. And in there, he's made many arguments. Most of them were sovereign immunity and absolute immunity for all state employees that I named. But he also went further, and this was Assistant Attorney General Brian Tetrell from Attorney William Tong's office. But he, in his brief or motion to dismiss, he said, even if the judge accepted bribes and took bribes to change custody, due to absolute immunity, she still cannot be held responsible. So that's their argument. Their argument is that if they do a crime, they are immune.
And my argument to that is don't file anything at a state level, because they will every successful lawsuit. That was federal. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's only been 2 in the entire nation so far that have won. Every single other one that I know of went your route. There's only 2. So that, and I know that they have actually accepted a third that has not yet been tried. So in the history of doing this, everybody has had the same exact results at a federal level than you are having. Sean McMillan was the very first one to have any level of success holding the state actors accountable. And he's done it twice now. And so there's been a precedent set, and there is a way, there's a new path to justice. And we just need to reproduce it and keep going, because it's not hopeless anymore. There's a flicker of light, and there is hope for justice.
Yeah, and I think removing immunity is a big part of it, because that should be clear. Like, no more judicial immunity. If I'm a doctor and I accidentally harm you, I could be sued. If you're a judge and you accidentally harm me, you're immune? No. It shouldn't work like that.
Darkness, evil hides in darkness, and we cannot have lack of cameras in state courts. I mean, for God's sake, these are our children we're talking about. We need to have absolute yes and no proof of what's going on, not hearsay, not this sham. My recommendation is actually to just dissolve all family court because it has allowed hearsay to infiltrate, and that is the right to lie.
Yeah. And like even with the Connecticut, for example, I think in many other states it's the same, but a lot of the like juvenile cases where DCF, if they try to file neglect or terminate your rights or whatever, those cases are all confidential. They're not open to the public.
Yeah.
And so it's like family court is open to the public. Anyone can go look up anyone's case, read the motions, sit in the hearing and watch. But in juvenile, it's all secret. And I think that helps them get away with so much more wrongful removals and taking children and these wrongful adoptions and stuff. And it's like, then after the case is over, they destroy all the records. So like, why do you
You're
have
not
law?
supposed to do that.
That's the law. Why do they enact statutes saying that? Who are they trying to protect? Not the children. If anything, these children then don't have a paper trail of what happened to them.
Right. And so just ask a simple question. Every time you ask yourself a question like that, what action will make them the most money? That's it. You will be able to predict their every action.
Yeah. And then like with all the, when they say, oh, do supervised visits, do drug tests, do this, even if you don't need it. And then the parents do it and they jump through hoops. And then they're like, well, now you still have to do 17 more programs before you get your kids. Why? It's not that they like just want to waste your time. They're making money for every time that they refer you to a program.
Since it's per day, per child, per head count, the longer your child is in foster care, the more money they get, period. So whatever they tell you to do, they don't mean it. It's whatever action they're doing is not for your betterment or to help your child. It is to postpone the duration of foster care so that it's longer and longer and longer, and that they get closer and closer to that goal of theirs, which is adoption of that child. So they get the ASPA bonus, which is thousands of dollars. It's literally a cash bonus for kidnapping children and then adopting them out. That's what the ASPA bonus is. And 1996 is when it just got bad. I'd actually been a foster mom since 1979. And it got bad in 1996. Awful and progressively worse. And it's because they used a bonus model and a per day model. They changed it. And that bonus for the social workers has encouraged certain behaviors to get paid. And boy, are they good at those behaviors now, to the point of illegality and absolute corruption within every one of our states in the union in America. Foster care is corrupt. It just is. There's no other way to look at it. And we have the evidence now with the recent nationwide HHS reports.
Do you support making DCF workers wear body cams?
Absolutely. I also support not having DCF workers. What the hell are they doing? I mean, they are quasi lawyers, quasi policemen,
Yeah, exactly.
quasi daycare workers because they're bringing the kids to the offices and have them sleep there. I mean, what are they doing exactly? No good, as far as I can tell. I was a home health nurse and I went to people's houses all the time. I'm going to tell you, we helped them. We went and helped moms to breastfeed and we did this and that. If somebody's in need, most of the time it's either poverty or lack of information, not abuse and neglect, but because every single state in the union has a different definition of abuse and neglect, and every single different state in the union has different data sets. There's no communal one data set for doing any of this stuff. And that has led to an impossibility for researchers to actually get good apples to apples in order to, even the age of what, or definition of what a child is, or abuse and neglect are all up for air, depending upon what the current state's definition is. And that means when the children go across borders from one state to another, the records are almost inevitably lost. They do not follow the child.
Yeah, and like I talked to one mom from I think Florida, and she said that there was a situation where a temporary removal happened where her children were put in the temporary care of her other child, her oldest, who was like 18 or 19, and that her 18-year-old daughter received a lump sum of $20,000 as the first payment, and then a monthly check of like $2,000 during the whole time where she had the siblings. And so that's just like one case of like, if you're getting $20,000 up front to take the kids, and that was supposed to be to help with like setting her up with housing and whatever else like and stuff, and then on top of it a monthly paycheck, and it's like they're also getting reimbursements for whatever money that they're paying out, so it's like more of an incentive to keep doing it. And like there's no money to be made if they're not removing kids there, whether it's Title 4D with the judges removing kids or Title 4E with DCF removing kids. Like you said, either way, they're all connected. They're part of the same fraudulent stream of stealing them. I call it stealing, but it's not stealing because these laws make it legal, but they're creating loopholes and taking advantage and exploiting it. That's the problem.
It's actually worse than that. I mean, they really are illegal. They're taking, children that should not be taken based on lies, right? And misevidence and blah, blah, blah. And they're turning poverty into a crime so horrible that you get to have your children taken from you. There's constitutional protections against unusual punishment for crimes, and people who are being put in prison for shoplifting are losing their children as a punishment. I mean, yeah, it's because, again, always look at the money. They get money to take children. If we just did a population thing where they get X amount of money every year based on the population, there would be no need to go out. As a matter of fact, they would probably get a little on the lazy side, right? Because the less kids, the easier it is on them. All we have to do is tweak a few things, how the federal government pays money to the state governments, and we can cure most of this. We need to take the bonuses away for taking children, and we need to stop the money drop where states are making money on children's misery and the divorce misery. They're making money on it. Every state right now is dependent upon their a certain amount, 15, 20% for a consistent amount of divorces. The states will lose money if the divorce rate lowers. Think about that. The state will lose money if the amount owed per parent unit is reduced because they base literally their reimbursement on how much money they collect. It's sick. It is Congress's fault because this is the way that they wrote the required rules for Social Security, child support, and foster care to be funded, period. The workers, the HS workers have two choices: commit crimes or quit. They have a very high rate of quitting because most people have a moral compass and won't do what is required to keep the office open. And that's the world we're living in right now.
Yeah, and I think like they're also expected, all these agencies are expected to like police themselves. There's no oversight. I had a comment here now. Somebody wrote, in Minnesota, we have one licensed social worker that oversees unlicensed caseworkers. This is how they avoid the Minnesota State Oversight Committee. For me to file a complaint, I have to submit a complaint to the County Board of Supervisors. Here, that's 5 people differently. We have unchecked authority running rampant. And like in Connecticut, it's even worse. We don't have county governments. We don't have grand jury.
So I'm going to repeat my advice. Do not pursue any remedy that includes anything at the state level. You will be wasting your time. Figure out how to talk to your federal, 1 congressperson, and federal 2 Senate people. You have 3 people and only 3 people in terms of politics that are going to help you, period. So go to your federal legislators and tell them what's going on with a proposed solution. Do not go just with complaints. You'll be wasting their time. If you know what happened, you know where it happened in the federal funding or the federal law, go and talk to them. And then also federal legislation is the only way to go to. Do not bother filing anything state level. And we're just now cracking the dome of the federal legislation. But the more the merrier. With the use of AI now, you can study those cases and
I have a
tell
question.
AI to study the cases that have won and then to model your own over that. And then again, file federally, not state.
So question, and also Melissa Owens, who was also part of the FJA thing, she had said the same thing. In Connecticut, they're completely ignoring us. And it's like I was saying before, like, what would you suggest? Like, if we're trying to propose something that is going to be a federal law and we're from Connecticut and the Connecticut congressmen and senators ignore us, is it acceptable to then reach out to representatives?
Is that Blumenthal and
All Deloro, Chris Murphy?
okay.
But
Chris
if they
Murphy
ignore
is all on board. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm working with his office and they know about, I actually haven't told them about the AWOL, but they were completely updated and on board with, this new law that's being passed to help out. So I know that Murphy is a good resource and I would suggest going to Murphy. And
Okay, yeah.
the appointments, you can either go, all right, so here's a little hint about making appointments. You want to make an appointment with the DC branch, but when you
Okay.
make the appointment, just don't tell them you can't afford to go there, right? Once you have the appointment secured, then tell them, oh, look, I'm going to need to make this a Zoom phone call. Then you'll have a Zoom appointment without having to travel to DC. And the reason this is important is because it's the DC legislative aides who are doing the writing of the bills.
Okay. And so like,
Um,
but I guess I'm saying like, does it matter? Does it have to be from our state or
No,
is it
no.
possible to talk to any senator, any congressman? Because if
Absolutely.
it's federal for all the states,
So
right?
what the deal is when you go to make an appointment with whoever, if it's not your own senator, they're going to ask you if you are constituent, right? And if you're not, you're not, and they generally don't see you. So what you want to do is this is a nice internet thing, just find somebody from that state to join you on the Zoom call and then get an appointment with that senator. Okay, and you can both be on Zoom for that matter, but they won't at first glance see you if you're not one of their constituents. But again, just loop one of their constituents in. And then like, for example, I am not Senator Grassley's constituent. My folks are Senator Patty Murray and Ron Wyden. Ron Wyden has been wonderful. Murray and Cantwell, not so much. But, I have hit it off with actually 2 times in a row now. Well, first it was way back with Senator Orrin and Wiley. And then Orrin Hatch retired. And so Senator Grassley took over his stuff about 6 years ago or so. So now I've been working over at Grassley's office. But I prefer to work with Grassley and like Schumer's office because I want to work with the people who are dropping the bills. I see no other reason to waste my time with somebody else to talk somebody else into it. So they're seeing me now because I've been a trusted advisor for 10 years. And so I'm their policy advisor for Title 40 issues.
Right. And
And volunteer, all volunteer too. Don't take a penny.
okay. So Melissa said, I went to Murphy multiple times. He's ignored.
Mhm.
And then they told me when I was in his office that he doesn't get involved in family court. So
They have been saying that up until 45 days ago. When did she see him last?
Melissa, when was that? And also another one said, Heather said, I'm being completely ignored by Florida legislatures, not only regarding my own personal situation, but to discuss Title 4D and E, Corey Mills, etc., ignoring us. So would you say like
Okay.
if people
I'll
dealing
go
with
ahead and talk about the Florida one first. All state
okay,
legislators will ignore you. Do not even bother contacting you. Only the federal legislatures have power of the purse authority. States can't change Title IV, no matter how badly. It's written. State legislators cannot touch it. Don't bother. Only go to federal. Federal are the ones who've written these bad laws, and they are the only ones to fix it. And they will always say, including Senator Murphy's office, this is a state issue, because that's that lazy thing to say. And just like the AWOL term, it's spread all over Congress to say that it isn't the federal government's fault. All you have to do is point out to them, do the states have authority to change Title 4E or D? And they will say no. And so therefore it is your fault or your responsibility to fix this issue, not the state. And I got really aggressive with them finally with some really super duper awful information, and they have changed their tune of late. In particular, Murphy's office. He went from not taking anything because really thought it was not their problem or not their issue to fix.
Yeah,
And
she
it's
said that
only
she said when she went to him, it was in November when she was down in DC with Fran, and that since then she sent emails and called and been ignored.
if you're, I'm sorry to say this, but I do know this for an absolute fact. If you're associated with Fran, you're not going to get any responses. I'm so
So-
sorry.
So now that she's cut ties with Fran, would you recommend her to make that clear to them? And
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, what I would do is just tell them what's going on. Don't mention Fran and just be a problem solver, because I'm having the same thing with people who are wanting to get in to see Grassley while they're in town, like patrol and roll, but they're not seeing any outsiders because they have been threatened, harassed, and just bashed by Francesca and her group. We're not the only ones who are, lied to and more or less attacked. That's her modus of operandi. So if you're associated with Fran, and they've heard of her, you're probably not going to get an appointment with them.
yeah, and it's like, I've even heard people that said that when they asked for an ADA advocate, the court said, yes, you can have one, but it cannot be Francesca Amato. And we looked at, I saw the email. They said, after further review, we have determined that Francesca Amato will not be an appropriate ADA support person. So it's like, all you have to do is look her up and see, like, all she does is like spew hate and attacks. And like, it's like, see how you're trying to like think of constructive ways to actually come up with solutions and do things that are like, tangible. Like, I like to look at like reality and like be realistic and set goals that are reasonable. And like, I like that you're saying that you're willing to review people's proposed drafted ideas of what they want to see become laws. And maybe, are you willing to work together with people as well to try to be a liaison between some of these people?
Lots of folks that I'm working with. Tons and tons and tons of people that I work directly with who are seasoned 10 plus years veterans. And a lot of folks that have been working with, specifically at Grassley's office that I work with, who are constituents. So I have a lot of help. I can use more. And the second we get this bill agreed upon, we are going to be making a national movement under the Stone Soup umbrella. We've got a website being made and stuff like that. So we will start mobilizing people, and we will give people what they need to go and talk to the centers about it. And we're going to replicate what we did for the Family First Act in terms of mobilizing people and getting them to see their senators. And we help them get, there's kind of an art to getting an appointment in DC. And I've got it rather mastered. So I help people get appointments, when they can be gotten. And, we just really hit it and get like coordinated t-shirts and all that kind of stuff. And, at that point where we're ready, when we have an agreed upon bill from everybody who's submitting, and then Grassley's office agrees to it, then we will hit it hard. So we're in the bubbling stages right now. We're still kind of like getting the data. I'm not writing the bill, I'm collecting the data.
And somebody asked you if you have seen Robert Garza's method.
Oh, yeah. The only problem with Robert Garza's method is that he's strictly state.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
He doesn't have, and Mark Ludwig, I've been friends with Mark Ludwig for years and years and years. In fact, I'm pretty sure I funded his first trip to DC ever. Way back when we were all poor. And so we're good friends, but Mark has not submitted or authorized or even done one word of legislation for Title 4D that I know of. He is like Fran in that he's an excellent organizer and mobilizer, but he recognizes that he doesn't have any expertise in writing bills. So he's kind of letting that part brew, right? But he's still having absolute great success. And so, I am taking Title 4B submissions too, but what I'm going to do with that part is I'm going to have Mark look it over for me to make sure I didn't get anything wrong. Because again, I am an expert totally at Title 4E, and I'm probably in the 98th percentile of people who know things about Title 4D, but I'm not the expert on it. And I'll solicit their help when I'm ready. Who wants to pass and to do good and be good and cover everything?
Okay. Well, yeah, I think it's awesome that you're extending that out to the public. And just again, in case anybody missed it, if you'd like to send a proposed federal draft of proposed law that you'd like Kathleen to put into, I guess, the pipeline of ideas
To
here.
spit it out into a form that the legislators can use and just plug it right into the change. It's a cheat sheet for the Congress.
And it's regarding possible solutions for the issues regarding Title 4D or Title 4E. And if
Yes.
anyone wants to email you, again, it is katartkat, katartkat
Yeah. And
Okay, perfect.
I have to go to the restroom, so I believe I will sign off. It was really a joy to talk with you. Does anybody have any last questions?
Any last minute questions or forever hold your peace? I don't see any instantly coming up, but if anyone does have follow-up questions, you can feel free to comment them and we can try to forward them to Kathleen after.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you so much.